I went on a weekend hike with my girlfriend Megan last September. We wanted to disconnect for a couple days, so we picked this quiet trail deep in the Appalachian Mountains. It was one of those spots where the cell service cuts off 5 minutes into the drive, and the nearest town is just a post office and a general store. We parked at a small pull-off on the side of a gravel road, packed our gear, and set off. We planned to hike in for about 4 miles and camp near a creek we found on a hiking forum. The first couple hours were peaceful. Tall trees, cool breeze, nothing but birds, and the sound of our boots crunching leaves. We didn't see a single person. As the sun started going down, we reached the creek and set up camp. We had a small fire going, roasted some hot dogs, and were just relaxing under the stars. Around 10:30, we climbed into our tent. The woods were dead quiet, almost too quiet. I brushed it off as just being remote. I woke up sometime after midnight to a faint snapping sound outside. It wasn't a branch falling. It was slow and steady, like footsteps. I sat up and listened. After a few seconds, it stopped. I unzipped the tent just slightly and peeked out. Nothing. Just pitch black woods. I laid back down but didn't sleep well the rest of the night. The next morning, I told Megan what I heard. She joked about it being a raccoon or deer, but I wasn't so sure. We packed up and decided to hike further up the trail and explore. The higher we got, the more eerie the woods felt. The trees were thicker and the air felt heavier. Around 4 p.m., we came across something strange. A clearing with what looked like an old fire pit, but there were bones around it. Small ones, like from rabbits or squirrels, arranged in little circles. Nearby, there were sticks leaned together in a triangle shape. None of it looked natural. It felt like someone or something put it there. Megan got creeped out and wanted to turn back, but we were already a good distance in, so I convinced her to keep going just a little further. That's when we started hearing it, something calling out in the woods. At first, it sounded like a woman calling for help, but it was distant and off, like someone trying to mimic a human voice, but not quite getting it right. Megan froze. She whispered that it sounded like her name. I thought she was being paranoid, but then I heard it too, my name, but drawn out and unnatural, like someone had recorded my voice and was playing it back with a glitch. I shouted out, asking who was there. No response, just silence. We stood there, frozen, and then something moved just beyond the tree line. Tall, lanky, almost human, but not quite. It stepped out just enough for us to see that its limbs were too long and its face was all wrong, like it was wearing a human face, but it didn't fit right. It tilted its head, just staring at us. We ran, full speed, not even looking back. We didn't stop until we were nearly 2 miles down the trail. Like we hid behind a thick cluster of trees, trying to catch our breath. We didn't hear anything behind us, but it felt like we were being watched. When we finally made it back to the car, the sun was starting to set. The whole drive back, neither of us said much. We couldn't make sense of what we saw or what we heard. Later that night, I started researching strange encounters in the Appalachians. That's when I came across stories about skinwalkers, shape-shifting creatures, often mimicking voices to lure people deeper into the woods. The voice that called out our names. It still haunts me. We never went back to those woods, and we never will. We used to ride our bikes everywhere when we were kids. Me, my brother Devin, and our neighbor Caleb. Summers in our small town in West Virginia were quiet and slow, and we'd kill time by exploring the woods behind our neighborhood. It was one of those places where the trees went on for miles and there were barely any trails, just dirt paths we made ourselves over the years. One evening in July around 6:30, we decided to go deeper than we ever had. We packed some snacks, flashlights, and then told our parents we'd be back by dark. Our plan was simple: follow one of our old trails until we reached the creek, then keep going to see where it led. The ride started out normal. The sun was still high, birds chirping, bugs buzzing, tires crunching over dry leaves. We laughed, raced each other, and threw sticks in the path to trip one another up. We stopped by the creek, skipped stones, and ate some trail mix. After about 15 minutes, we continued, heading into parts of the woods we'd never been in before. The trees started getting thicker. The path was barely visible. Devin was up front, followed by me, then Caleb. We weren't talking as much now, just pedaling and glancing around. There was this weird silence in the air. No birds, no wind, just the sound of our tires. Then Devin stopped. He pointed ahead and said he saw something move. We all looked, but there was nothing there. We figured it was a deer or something and kept riding. About 5 minutes later, Caleb screamed and stopped so suddenly that I crashed into him. He said he saw something cross the path up ahead, big, fast, and dark. He swore it was walking on 2 legs. We all looked again, but nothing. We started getting nervous. Devin wanted to turn back, but I said we'd gone this far, maybe just a little more. The sun was starting to dip low, and the shadows were growing longer. We agreed to go just a few more minutes. Then we saw it. Standing between the trees, maybe 30 feet from us, was something massive. Tall, wide shoulders, long arms, covered in dark, matted hair. It wasn't moving, just standing there, half hidden behind a tree, watching us. I couldn't breathe. Caleb whispered that it looked like a gorilla, but this thing wasn't hunched or swinging from trees. It was standing upright, like a man, a huge one. We froze, staring at it. It didn't move. It didn't blink. Then Devin's bike chain made a loud clicking sound as he slowly backed up, and that was enough. The thing stepped forward. Just one step, but it was fast and it made the ground shake. We turned and bolted. We were riding faster than we ever had, dodging trees, sliding over roots, barely able to see where we were going. The whole time I felt like something was right behind us. Every few seconds I heard heavy thumps in the dirt, like something massive was running. We didn't stop until we burst out of the woods and onto the dirt road that led to our neighborhood. We didn't look back once. We got home, panting, scratched up, and wide-eyed. Our parents didn't believe us. They said it was probably a bear or a shadow playing tricks on us. But we knew what we saw. Bears don't walk like that. Bears don't stare like that. We never went back to that part of the woods again. And even now, years later, we still talk about it. We try to laugh it off sometimes, but the fear never really left. Whatever we saw out there, it was watching us, waiting. And if we'd stayed just a few minutes longer, I don't think we would have made it back. It was the summer after high school graduation, and my friends and I were craving adventure. We lived in a small town in northern Michigan, surrounded by thick forests and miles of untouched wilderness. My group of friends, Megan, Kyle, Jake, and I, had always talked about hiking deeper into the woods than any of us had dared to go before. It was a rite of passage for us. We had camped out a few times, but this time we were determined to explore areas no one had ever been to. It was the kind of adventure we thought would be fun at the time, but looking back, I can only wonder how stupid we were. We left in the early afternoon, thinking we'd return by evening. We had our backpacks loaded with water, snacks, and camping gear. The sun was shining, the air was warm, and we were ready to push ourselves to the limits. There was one trail we knew about that would take us deeper into the woods, far beyond any part of the forest we had explored before. It was one of those paths that was rarely traveled, and people said it eventually led to a forgotten part of the woods where old logging camps had once stood. The idea of being the first to explore it was too tempting for us to pass up. We followed the trail, laughing and talking as we hiked. The deeper we went, the quieter the forest seemed to get. The usual rustling of leaves and chirping of birds gradually faded, replaced by an eerie stillness. It was as if the forest was holding its breath. The trail was narrow and overgrown, and we had to push through thick brush and tangled branches. Kyle, who was always the bravest of us, pushed ahead, excited to see what lay ahead. He kept encouraging us, laughing and making jokes. But the further we went, the more uneasy I began to feel. It wasn't anything specific, just an odd sense of being watched. Every time I glanced over my shoulder, I'd think I saw something moving in the trees. But when I turned around, nothing was there. I chalked it up to my imagination, trying to ignore the growing feeling of discomfort. We finally reached a clearing around dusk. The trees seemed to open up into a wide, flat area where remnants of an old campsite lay. Rusted metal tools, broken chairs, and an old fire pit surrounded by large rocks. We all gathered around the fire pit trying to set up camp. The atmosphere was heavy, the air thick with an oppressive silence. As the sun began to set, the shadows grew long, stretching across the clearing. That's when we heard it. At first, it was faint, almost like a whisper carried by the wind. I thought it was just the trees, swaying in the breeze, but then it came again. It was louder this time, a low hum, almost like chanting. It sent a chill down my spine, and I could tell the others heard it too. We all froze, exchanging uneasy glances. Megan, who was sitting closest to the fire, stood up and peered into the woods. "Do you hear that?" she asked, her voice shaky. We all nodded, but no one spoke. The sound was so strange, like it was coming from deep within the woods. It wasn't a sound any of us recognized. Kyle tried to make light of it. "It's probably just some hikers from another group. No big deal." But his voice trembled slightly, betraying his nerves. We tried to ignore it, but the noise continued, growing louder and more distinct. It was almost rhythmic, like a chant or a drumbeat echoing through the trees. The trees around us seemed to sway, and the air felt thick and suffocating. Jake, who was always the skeptic, suggested we investigate. We're probably just hearing some weird wildlife or something. Let's check it out." I wasn't so sure. Every instinct in me told me to stay put. But we had come this far, and the others were already standing up, ready to move. I hesitated, but followed them anyway. We ventured into the woods, following the sound, which seemed to grow louder the deeper we went. The trees were thick here, the underbrush nearly impossible to push through. We had to climb over fallen logs and crawl under low-hanging branches. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, but I pushed the thought aside. It wasn't until we reached the edge of a small ravine that we stopped. The noise was deafening now, louder than anything I had ever heard in my life. It was coming from below, somewhere deep in the ravine. The earth seemed to vibrate with the sound, and I could feel my heart racing in my chest. I looked down at the ravine and saw nothing but shadows, dark, moving shapes that made no sense. For a moment, I thought I saw a figure, tall, hunched, and covered in what looked like moss or fur, but it was gone in an instant. "Did you see that?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Kyle, Megan, and Jake didn't answer. They were all staring down into the ravine, their faces pale. We were all scared now, but we couldn't look away. It was like something was pulling us in, an overwhelming need to see what was making the noise. Then, out of nowhere, the sound stopped. It was as if someone had flipped a switch. The forest went completely silent. No wind, no birds, no insects, just silence. The trees behind us started to move, but not in the usual way. It was as if something was pushing through them, something large. We turned around just in time to see something massive emerge from the woods. It was huge, covered in dark, tangled hair, with eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. The creature was hunched over, moving slowly but deliberately toward us. We screamed and bolted, running back the way we came. The creature didn't chase us, but we could hear it moving behind us, its heavy footsteps thundering through the forest. It was only when we reached the clearing that we stopped, gasping for air, too terrified to go on. We spent the rest of the night huddled around the fire, too scared to sleep. The creature never came into the clearing, but we could hear it circling us, its low growl echoing through the trees. Eventually, we gathered enough courage to leave, but none of us spoke a word as we packed up and left. We made it back to the town by sunrise, but the memory of what we saw stayed with us. We never went back into those woods again, and we never told anyone what happened. Every now and then, I'll think about that creature and the sound that seemed to call us in. I still don't know what we saw that night, but I'll never forget the feeling of being hunted, the sensation that something in those woods was watching us and waiting.